right. And we are live for the January live stream for Grassroots Economic Organizing. Josh Davis, and I am the content manager for GEO. I am here with Chris Preciado, as always. Chris, I heard from a little birdie told me that you were in the news lately. Is that true?
Oh no, that wasn't me. Yeah, so yeah, so now there's in San Antonio, Texas, there's another Christopher Preciado who's been in the news, but it's for they're being charged with murder. So yeah.
Oh, hold on, I'm gonna put this dog outside. Sorry, I am farm sitting, and the farm dog has to bark at everything. So.
Yeah,
yes.
But I saw the dog here too. She needs to chill out. She's starting to make noise too. But yeah, that's not me. That's someone else. They have long hair too. They wear glasses as well.
I looked it up. I didn't want to say anything. Yeah, I was like, oh well. Definitely good thing you're out of San Antonio now.
Well, you know something. Well, something weird is that on one of my Facebook profiles, I got a lot of Facebook friend requests.
Oh geez.
And it was very recently out of nowhere, and I had no idea why, and I suspect that's why.
Oh man.
I deleted all of them, but I was thinking about like, oh man, I missed out on so many friends. It's like my one chance to have a lot of friends.
Who wants to friend somebody who's accused of murder? You know?
Yeah, I don't get it.
We'll try to connect.
Maybe they're bot. I don't know how the bot stuff works.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Who knows? That's kind of funny though. Not a case of mistaken identity you want to have, but
yeah.
Fortunately, they've got the guy. Yeah. So, how is the new year treating you, Christopher?
Yeah, it's good. Some of my pals are getting more serious about building a housing co-op, so that's great to see. And then we have a meeting tomorrow to talk about that nonprofit I told you about that we're trying to create.
Mm-hmm.
So more work, but it'll be good, man. Because a lot of the growth in cooperative economics interest in Chicago is growing really fast, and I know that like in San Antonio, Texas, it's going to grow really fast too. So it's good to have this stuff prepared.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been having a pretty good new year because I was telling you I'm taking care of a couple's young couple's farm, small farm, I guess more. It's like they do markets in the summer, and they've got a couple of goats and some dogs that need care and feeding while they're off introducing their new baby to its grandparents. So I get to be here with the animals for a week and a half or so, and it's always something I enjoy. It's been a while since I've done that, so I've got plenty of fresh milk. So if anybody's in the in northwest Montana and wants some milk, send us an email.
Yeah, are there any goats?
Yeah, we've got two. Well, let's see, three goats in milk right now, and they've got a total of like 7, or 8, but a bunch of them are kids.
I think it'll be cool to have your that person you said who like they beat cancer by drinking goat milk. I think, is that correct?
Yep.
I think it'll be cool to have them on.
He swears by it. Yeah. Lance, I don't know. He's not really. I don't think he's one for, public. This kind of thing doesn't seem like it'd be up his alley, but yeah, no, he swears by that. He said when he was at the worst part of his cancer, he was down to like 85 pounds, and I mean he's my build. He's like 170, 180, 5'10", 5'11", something like that, and yeah, so he was just said skin and bones, and he's just got a couple milk goats and started just drinking a bunch of goat's milk and put the weight back on him, and he beat the cancer. And so
I think maybe I should preemptively drink goat milk.
yeah, well, it's good, and even for people who are lactose intolerant, apparently, with cow's milk, because it has a different type of casein, or however you say that particle name, but it's a little easier to digest, apparently. It is, they say goats are the universal donor for their milk. Like, you can raise any type of little animal on goat milk. Like, you've got a baby deer or a baby kitten or something that needs some milk, and doesn't have it, like, anything can take goat's milk. At least that's what I've been told by the goat people that I hang out with. So. Yeah, so Matt is going to be joining us a little bit later. His idea, he wants us to talk about our best co-op experiences. But before we do that, we can save that for when he gets here and think about that. And in the meantime, maybe talk about this article that I grabbed from Venezuela Analysis last week about this co-op in Venezuela, and it's a recovered factory. I think in the 20-teens, there was a union moved to unionize the factory, and the bosses reacted poorly to that, locked the workers out. They ended up they were going to shut down the company and strip it, and the workers kind of occupied the factory, kept them from taking all the machinery out, and then were able to cooperatize it with the use of the law. So let's see, present, share screen. All right. No, come on. Yeah, doing the typical, how do I share my screen?
I think you do the present.
Yeah, I do the present. I'm trying to do it without showing the entirety of my desktop.
Oh, yeah.
And I've just got my one, here we go, my one screen on my laptop right now, so it's making it a little bit tough. Okay, you can see this?
Yeah.
All right.
In fact,
oh, here, you know what?
Indorca.
No, I want to log out. Yes, okay, let's log out so I don't accidentally dox myself somehow. Yes, so yeah, here's our front page, and yeah, article from January 1st, a good article to start the year out with. It's an interview in text format with a number of these workers. You can see them there, and it's actually, so it is a metallurgical factory. So these are probably aluminum ingots, I would guess. But they make like irrigation pipe, culvert, stuff like that. And yeah, so they interview these workers, and the thing that one of the big things that stood out to me in this interview, and whenever I come across a co-op that has this characteristic, I always get excited. They have a solidarity wage. They have a flat wage. Everybody gets paid the same. Um, they have metallurgists, they have engineers, they have people who are highly skilled metal workers, um, and all and then everything else that needs to get done, and everybody gets paid the same. And they're very keen on their democratic control. They're not recreating the old management structures. And you can tell just reading how kind of rightfully proud of themselves there. Be like we figured out like we can run this company, like just us, the people who work here, and do everything that needs to get done. And yeah, so they became a co-op, I believe, in 2015. They got full control, and yeah, been going ever since, and apparently quite famous in the particular area of Venezuela where they're at. One of the workers, and I was kind of reminded of something, Chris, you had asked about people who had management experience and wanted to talk about that. Well, there's a guy, and one of the people they interview was had been like in management administration for years. He said before becoming part of this co-op, and he said I've learned more from the the workers than I did in all my years beforehand. So and yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to draw some attention to that story because I think it is a good one, very inspiring. Oh, here we go. I worked in public administration for 25 years, and I've learned more from the workers here than I did in my entire earlier career. My job here is humble. I work on the administrative side of the enterprise. I help with the accounting. This boils down to carefully preparing for a monthly assembly. ... So there's a little sentiment there. Yeah, and here we have Jesus. It's very common to say that workers cannot run factories. The Indorca experience shows the opposite. Not only have we been at this for 7 years, but whereas most state and privately owned enterprises have shut down due to the crisis and the pandemic, we've kept our doors open, which is quite impressive. You've been following it all, like the events in Venezuela. It's been pretty dire economically for a while because of the blockades and other things. So the fact that they're able to keep at it, even when state-owned factories are not being able to stay open, really does speak to the power of their solidarity, which was built again through this. It started out as a union organizing effort, and then a lockout, and they said they really had to lean heavily on their community in those couple of years while they were wrangling with the bosses, and I think it served them well since then. Yeah, so here's Gladys Rangel. How would you say that, Chris, since you're a Spanish speaker?
Rangel.
Okay, I'm way off. I'm not even.
It sounds cool like that, though, Rangel.
Yeah, say it like a white guy. Gladys says equality is a real thing here in Indorca. We actually live by its rule. When I was hired some 2 years ago, I was interviewed by Jose and Yaneth. The first thing they said was that Indorca is not just any enterprise. This is a democratically run, self-managed factory where all workers take decisions together in the monthly assembly, and that we all get the same pay. They also they also told me that I wouldn't get rich, which is true. Since then, Indorca has become my second home. I've raised my baby here and learned from the workers. Here I discovered how the working class can run a factory, even while Venezuela faces one of the hardest crises in history. So, there you go. And here's the kind of stuff they're making. They go from that to that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's interest here in helping some of the, well, there's a few of us talking to who are very discontent about how the response to helping out a lot of these refugees from Venezuela is not giving them like any self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Just a lot of just charitable kind of handouts, not really any sort of attempted organizing or anything like that.
And the first complaint that I heard from it was one of my friends who was talking to them about it, and they're like, "Yeah, like we appreciate, sleeping bags and all that, but we're really trying to work. We want to, we want to find stuff that's self-sufficient, and a lot are not finding work." I think some of those who have been successful just because they've been building their own little businesses. And I've been slowly talking about some of the Venezuela cooperativism, and as you were going through that, I was thinking like, hey, is there a map of the Venezuela co-ops that maybe we could start sharing to them, and maybe maybe folks know folks who know some of the a lot of these folks are still talking to their relatives back home. It's in constant communication, and I was thinking they might, maybe I should recommend them at one point to talk to their people, or relatives or friends of friends, whatever, who are in these co-ops for like advice about the culture, at least about the culture. Maybe they can get into the industries or whatever, but because like if you were to talk about Chicago's capacity to help them build cooperatives, it's not really there. Like the capacity is super low. So I think like peer support, international peer support, that I really wonder if that might really help them out. That'd be cool to see too. Like conferences taking place ad hoc.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that should be a great opportunity for the co-op movement here in the U.S. to make connections with the co-op movement in Venezuela. I mean, or at least, there's the potential for that. At any rate, I mean, we've got a bunch of people here from that country. Let's and some of the most inspiring cooperative stories from the last couple of years that I'm aware of are coming from Venezuela. That's now maybe the folks who are showing up here aren't connected at all to any co-ops in Venezuela, or into that community at all. I don't know, but
I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's just like a connection away.
Yeah,
like just one connection away.
I mean, and for co-op people here who want to help the Venezuelan refugees here to make the connection with Venezuelan co-ops to kind of start on the co-op side of things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I've already tossed out the idea. I'm glad we're talking about it because I'm gonna give it another push. Yeah, but the article, it reminded me of a New Era Windows cooperative here in Chicago. Like,
Yep.
very similar. It's a union,
Yep.
a workers union that did some good and helped with the development of a worker cooperative. And yeah, I'm gonna try to meet with them this month if possible, and try to follow Audrey's recommendation of like getting an interview, see like where they're at nowadays. Because I've heard where they're at. I think for years they've been doing their production has been confined or limited by their small space, and so they've been looking for like larger areas to rent. Um, well, that was the case like prior to the pandemic. I remember they're like, we want a larger place to do production. But I know this last time that I visit them, I sensed some attitude that they're also discontented with the idea that the the rent that they're paying doesn't go to the movement. So I think now they also would like to see the rent they're paying going to um, helping develop more co-ops. Um, so I'm pretty sure they
Yeah.
got a lot of interesting stuff to say. They seem to be doing really well. I remember I think the first time I saw them, um, they were I forgot who was talking to me, but they were saying that they had recently had some type of there was some issue they had, and so it meant that they had to make some adjustment, and everyone decided that they were gonna like come into work at 3 in the morning, and and I think their start time is like a lot later, and I was like, man, I that's really taking responsibility for things, and I know a lot of people who kind of talk about worker self management to some degree who are not going to come in at 3 in the morning. But it was really cool to hear that that all of them that they came to this agreement to come in that early to adapt to some problem emerged. I don't know what it was, but that's really that's dedication, man, and everybody's on board to make that sacrifice and to push like that.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's dedication, and it builds solidarity between everybody. After you've done that kind of thing a couple of times with a group of people, like, you have confidence, and you can do, a lot of stuff. Like your ability to do things, I feel like, just increases. The more you do that, the more you cohere as a unit. That's great to hear.
One weird thing though that I'm gonna try to remedy is that I'm not sure there's really much anything about New Era Windows in Spanish.
Really?
And it maybe it's out there, but it's not. It doesn't come up so easily in a Google search or whatever. I think on YouTube as well. So hopefully next time I talk to them, I'm gonna kind of try to confirm that, and I don't even think their website's in Spanish. But the thing about it, though, is that they definitely have Spanish-speaking workers.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I know Armando, and I would assume a number of the other worker owners are native Spanish speakers.
Right. So that might be something that I try to help out with. Maybe me and Raul. But I would like to see some more recent content about them in Spanish to help inspire our neighbors and stuff. Because they live like the factory is right around neighborhoods that speak Spanish. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of folks right around don't even know that they're like around this like really popular co-op.
Super cool. Yeah. Yeah, it has been a while since I've seen an update on New Era. There was a period of time, like, I don't know, 2016 or 2015 maybe, when they were getting a lot of press kind of right after they started, the years after. But yeah, it'd be great to talk to some of those folks, got the connection, invite them on to a live stream. Could do it in Spanish and English, or just in Spanish if you want. Why not?
So Matt's here. Matt, what was the topic that Matt had?
Oh, I just was thinking, if there's nothing to talk about, one question would be sort of a best co-op experience story. But another option would be when I was in Japan, there was a group that would do these fuck up Fridays, where you got together on Friday and people just talk about their biggest fuck ups. It was kind of an entertaining. It was a innovation entrepreneurship group kind of thing, but like sort of not necessarily co-op, but kind of alternative. But they saw it as an important part of innovating to be able to talk about things that blew up, didn't work, etc. So that's always struck me as a fun idea.
Well, I've got uh, something in mind for the on the positive side. But
There
Matt,
you go.
did you have something you want to start with? I mean, mine
No,
is
no,
not
go
like
ahead.
work.
I hadn't. I just threw out that question. I didn't even have an answer.
Okay. So I was thinking about it, and actually, I have to say, the most like a positive one of the most positive experiences I've had, just continue to have, is with my credit union, uh, financial cooperative. You know, um, Clearwater Credit Union, Missoula, Montana. They are amazing. They're great. We're great. We are a great institution. Um,
Wow.
and you know, they every other, and I think that they're probably kind of on the better side of credit unions. I've seen there's a lot of credit unions that have been popping up, at least where I'm at, in the last like 10 years or so. But Clearwater's been around forever. Um, Used to be Missoula Federal Credit Union. But the thing specifically that I have not seen other places and that Clearwater has done forever, and that has saved my butt a couple of times on more than one occasion, um, is they have a automatic line of credit that if you have a checking account, you have an automatic $200 line of credit that you can just transfer into your checking or savings at any time, and then
Yeah.
pay back whenever at the lowest interest rate ever. The last time I had to like dip into that, it was like needed the extra $100 before the paycheck got in or whatever, and I paid like 7 cents in interest when I paid it back a month later. It's just like,
Yeah.
you got like, it's great. And I know a lot of other people, and people of limited means, who don't bank at the credit union. I'm always trying to get them to bank at the credit union. And then when I moved out into the sticks here, I opened up a bank account at the local bank, and just seeing and being exposed again to what normal banking is, and like everything has a fee, and you're certainly not. They're not just going to let you like, have a little line of credit that you can just access whenever you feel like it. So I got to say, Clearwater Credit Union, great, continue to be great, and they really go out of their way to get member engagement, and they never get as much as they want, but they really, every year, you at least, if you're going into the branch, or if you're even opening up your your statements or whatever, that there's an AGM and they're trying to get people to run, and they're telling you who's running, and go out of their way to ask for input and ideas from their membership. So a good example in the space, I think.
It reminds me of how much I don't like my credit union.
Hey, really?
I don't. But maybe I got to find out more information, because I went to a different credit union recently, and I was talking to like the local manager and some other officers. I don't know. Yeah, a member of the board of directors, and yeah, I was telling them what I didn't like about my credit union, and it's that I've gone to many branches, and I talked to the workers, and it's not a hybrid cooperative. It's just supposed to be well, anyways, it's not a worker co-op, the credit union. That's one thing. I would like to change that. But the other thing is, like, I've asked workers, is there any place for the members to talk to each other? And all the workers that I've met, they all say no.
I'm sure no, right? Yeah.
And then I went to this is the Self-Help Federal Credit Union, and then I went to I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I went to the annual members meeting, and it was just online, and it was just like we were being talked to, and then there was a voting period, and it's just representative democracy, like how the credit union is run, and I don't like that. Um, and yeah, it was just such a really weird election to where like it was just like secret ballot, I guess, and um, I don't know that whatever system they're using, voting system. I don't know anything about that. I don't trust it. I don't, um, I don't like the whole system. It stinks, man. And yeah, what else? Um, but interestingly, supposedly one of the branches of that credit union, a friend said that they talked to one of the managers or something, and they said that branch, I think it's the Cottage Grove and 83rd branch in Chicago, that supposedly like they were gonna get like $1 million grant toward like basically grassroots economics, but they didn't really know anybody to give that to. And that was really cool that um, uh, just discovering that there might be credit unions nearby that have money that they don't know how to spend. So ask around. But yeah, I'm still investigating the credit union that I go to. I'm not. I would love to have a protest, to democratize it, or support it becoming a worker co-op. One funny thing that happened recently is I was trying to figure out how do you say credit union in Spanish, because it didn't seem so obvious to me. And and so when I went to the credit union and I asked one of the workers if she was talking in Spanish, and she was like, boom, she's talking a lot to this is the Pulaski location, not the 26th one, the one further south, like around 40th or something. She was talking in Spanish real fast, and just like boom, 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 and then she finished with the client, and then I went and I said, hey, how do you say credit union in Spanish? And she goes, oh, that's a good question. She didn't know either. And so I was looking around, and so then I went to the federal, that like National Credit Union Association, because my credit union didn't have it in Spanish either on their website. How do you say credit union in Spanish? And I found out that for the national, it's the NCUA that a lot of the credit unions are part of. Mm-hmm. It turns out that their translation is cooperative, savings and credit cooperative. Like that's one translation of credit union in Spanish, like literal translation. That's interesting. But anyway, sorry. I'll kick it over to you, Matt, if you got anything.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, it's, for me, credit unions didn't enter my life until the Occupy movement, and there was somebody, I forget who, was pushing take your money out of the banks and put them in credit unions. There was a big movement at that point. And I had known about credit unions and thought about it, but I just hadn't done anything. And then at that moment, I was like, and I'd just come out of some bad experiences with Citibank, which was just, Citibank is just awful for like, if you don't have money, so Citibank just treats you like crap. So I was like, okay, ready to try it out. And yeah, it was much better. It was like, for the same reasons that Josh explained. I mean, it was just like better terms all around, like, and the whole atmosphere, you go in, it's not that sort of creepy, overstressed workers who are being like, I don't know what, driven to deny people loans or something. It just felt very like legit. They do, on the other hand, just feel very apolitical and none of them, the people I've talked to, in terms of tellers and other people, don't really know that a credit union is a cooperative and are not really sure what that means. And they don't use that as their pitch, like if to a new member, they don't talk to you about that aspect of it. They just treat it as if it's a bank. But it's a good bank. That's kind of where that one lies at the moment. But Yeah, but I've been thinking recently, like, oh, I should get people out of these dang commercial banks, especially like Wells Fargo. I know a number of people who bank with Wells Fargo, and they're really the worst. Like they've, flat out criminal behavior that they've been busted for repeatedly. It's like,
They are.
why would we keep doing that? But there was a few years back, Matt Kropp was from the Vermont Employee Ownership Center was doing a sort of study of credit unions, and he and I talked a little bit about the idea of like a credit union democracy movement. Like, what would that look like to call for? What would be sort of a bill of rights that you would want for a credit union? Like, so what would be your demands on a credit union to make them more democratic? So there's some draft floating around out there that Matt and I came up with, but it never went anywhere. But it was a good discussion.
Let's bring it up because I'm gearing up to protest my credit union. If it doesn't get anywhere,
Well,
Protest.
the one thing about when you have organizations that are structurally democratic, but it's not used, right? Like it's not practiced. Those organizations often are pretty easy initially to launch a democratizing movement in it because the structures are there. Like you actually doesn't take a lot to organize enough people to have some serious power in the organization. It's just, once you get that organized, then the other people who don't like what you're doing are also going to get organized. But at the beginning, it can go a long way before they kind of realize that that's going on. So I don't know. Those basic democratic structures actually have some serious usefulness.
Sorry, I had to let the dog in.
Cool.
Wells Fargo. I had a friend who he was telling me about like one of his worst work experiences, and it was at Wells Fargo, and it was during that housing bubble, the market crash, whatever, 2007, 2009. He said his job was he was basically, how do you say? I don't know how to explain this so well, but basically, people who were gonna be dispossessed of their homes, who like there was no hope for them, and who were continuing to try to talk to Wells Fargo. His job was to talk to them, just to kind of like, I guess I don't know. There's a term for it in English. I forget what it is, and he said it was one of the most stressful jobs that he had. I guess trigger warning because it's like, violent, but he said that he couldn't sleep or whatever because people would be calling and begging for the home to not be taken away, and he said that they would say that they were going to commit suicide, they're going to lose everything, lose their family, and they would also give him suicide statistics. There was his understanding was that people were committing suicide from losing their homes. And so the stress of like just knowing that he's not helping them out and just kind of like facilitating some of these people to committing suicide, wasting their time. He said it was a really horrible job. Yeah, Wells Fargo, and was it Wells Fargo? They were like increasing. What bank was it? They're in the in 2020. They're like increasing the fees that they were hitting people with. Man, there's no mercy.
I think it was Wells Fargo was the one that was. What was they? They were most famous for the.
They have a number of
mortgages, right? They had some bounty or something. I forget what the story was, but they were paying. They're basically paying their employees to falsify records or to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. They're putting force placed insurance, I think is what they called it. That they were basically like signing people up for extra home insurance without telling them. They were encouraging employees. They had like they're trying to sign every customer up for 8 different accounts, 8 different like services of some variety, because I think it was John Stumpf at the time was the CEO. Because he had this slogan, 8 is great. So sign people up for 8
okay.
different things, and there was a big movement, the Move Your Money campaign, and a lot of the criminality coming out, and especially about Wells Fargo. Although Bank of
Mhm.
America, and Citibank were also
That's famous. Yeah.
big offenders. But I wrote a love letter from Occupy Missoula to Wells Fargo. Because opposites attract kind of thing. So it was a satirical kind of
Oh, that's
um,
hilarious.
organizational love letter, and it got a little bit of got passed around the internet a little bit, to Occupy people. But it was, but yeah, their Wells Fargo is terrible. I think any credit union is probably going to be better than just about any bank. And
So
certainly
Josh, at age 5, you weren't thinking about crypto and DAOs and the blockchain?
it was 1984, my friend.
Yeah, my friend's son, he's like 12 years old. He's thinking about buying crypto. I'm like, whoa, what?
God.
Life
Yeah.
is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was, I don't know, my folks were big credit union advocates right from the get-go. They had got their first home loan mortgage in the 70s from a credit union in Glendive, Montana, and had an account with them. Probably, I'm sure they still do. Yeah. All right. So what's your most positive co-op experience? Somebody else. It's not a financial co-op.
Yeah, most positive one.
This is going to look really bad. Come on.
I know there should be so. Well, it's because there are so many. No, let's see. I mean, for me, it's just like the one I'm having right now is the most positive one. So that's why I'm like drawing a blank on previous ones because I'm like, well, wait a minute, there must have been other things that I enjoyed. So I do want to think about some of the past ones that have been good. Like, I don't know. Huh. I mean, simple things, right? Like when I guess the first co-op that I had actual experience with was the Park Slope Food Co-op. And that, yeah, so I totally remember, like, the orientation session was, whatever, sort of interesting. It was just quick, really. It was kind of quick and just explain that you put in your $50 and you'll take it back. You get it back if you leave. It's kind of very simple, straightforward. Here's when the work shifts are, that kind of thing. But definitely the positive experience there was just just that shift in consciousness that came when I realized that by doing all the work, like being down in the basement or doing the receiving or whatever, going down for more vegetables or just whatever you had to do on the work shift, that it completely transformed my relationship to the whole process. So that when I go in to shop, it's like you're shopping from yourself, right? It's like where everything goes, how everything got on the shelf, and how the cheese got packaged, and it's all part of what you do, what you're involved in. And that really struck me. I was like, wow, this is a very, very different thing. That really convinced me that having people do work as part of a consumer co-op is really smart and important. So that was interesting because it wasn't like they didn't do tons of education, at least that I was involved in or that I saw. And it's not like there was a lot of promoting of all these ideas. It was just more in practice. You just felt it. So I think that was probably my initial positive experience of the co-op?
On the fly, it's a little hard for me to think about it, but I'm having this like tie in my head right now. One is this like this like I wouldn't call it an argument, but it's like back and forth that I've been having with Gromke and the co-ops and like cages. And Gromke needs some help right now. We've been like giving him help, and we have some money, and he won't take it. And he's like, "Well, there's like probably other people who need some help that are less fortunate than me." And it's a pretty funny how like he's just being so thorough to make sure that others are being taken care of. Um, but if all is well, we'll get him that money on Wednesday after 9 p.m. And then another is Melissa, where we helped her a lot, like when we were doing the in the co-ops not cage and stuff. It seemed like she needed like the help the most a lot, and a lot of times we were like coming together to help her out. And recently we helped her, and she's like in a way better situation, and so she recently like took the initiative to suggest something that will help me out quite a bit. And I haven't really had a chance to really enjoy it, but it was really cool that she had this idea to help me out. And it was like you can say it's a sacrifice for her, but that was really cool, and it's just one of those. It's kind of like one of those rare situations that I feel that I see in life where when someone's having a hard time, you got to focus on helping them, and when they recover from that, then you see them help someone else. Sometimes it's kind of rare for me to see, because a lot of times when I help people who are struggling, a lot of times I don't really get to see them after they're done struggling, and so I don't see them like. I don't see a different dynamic, or and they're probably also helping people too. I just don't see it. So that's really cool,
Yeah, I love that stuff. That we had that this summer when the farmer who I was helping out got hailed out in June. Early hailstorm just took out all those new plants that were growing. I mean, it was like pretty total, and she was just floored by it, And then she called the guy from the food distribution cooperative called Taproot, which is actually an interesting story. It was a cooperative created by it was a kind of Colorado-wide originally sort of cooperative project. It has a long history that kind of got it formed. But anyway, she calls him and she's like, I got nothing for you. Everything is out. No orders this week are going to happen at all. And he paid for the order anyway. He was like, no, we're paying for the order. Nothing got sent. So that was kind of a nice example of that. The farmer had no idea what was going to happen. She was completely thrilled. A bunch of other people came through, gave her plants. I mean, people came down and helped plant them. Everything kind of people pitched in and got it all back going again. But yeah, that was nice.
That reminds me of something that I read once. I don't know if it's true, but I read this text that supposedly a lot of inequality among farmers has emerged from weather phenomenon affecting people unevenly, and without that support, then like I guess the bigger, fortunate farmers or landowners began to acquire those properties that couldn't recover from the bad weather.
Yep. Tale as old as time. I'm reading Michael Hudson's new book, The Collapse of Antiquity, and that's definitely plays a part in it, going all the way back, to like Assyria and the Hittites and stuff. You got a bad season, or a bad crop, or some hailstorm takes out some people's crops, and they end up having to borrow from the landowner, the big guy
Mhm.
next door, somebody else to make their taxes, and then they end up getting indebted. And they lose their land, and then 2,000 years later, Michael Hudson writes a bunch of books about it. 1,000 years later.
So it's not a total loss.
No. But yeah, so yeah, that solidarity among farmers. It's good. It's definitely, there was lots of that. My paternal grandmother, I guess, her family, her people came, had homesteads in the central Montana, and definitely a lot of people helping each other out. There was definitely, nobody was getting by out there on the prairie, before electricity and all that with all, you had big families, but you also had the barn raisings and all that kind of stuff that, came together.
A lot of that kind of joint work. It's funny. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just gonna say the best co-op experience thing. I think the reason that came to my mind is I've always been struck by. Do you know this guy Miguel Marmol? He was a famous Salvadoran revolutionary he's kind of a legend in Latin America because he basically, the story is like he died and survived 12 times in his life. He had this repeated near-death experiences, and the most famous one was when he was executed in a firing squad in 1932, when the Salvadoran government cracked down on anybody who they thought was an agitator of any kind, and they massacred like 30,000 people, which in El Salvador is an awful lot of people. And he was one of them, and he was like, they put him and a bunch of people up, they fired machine guns, and he fell on the ground, and somehow, even though he was shot like a bunch of times, he still survived and then got away. And so he had experiences like this repeatedly in his life. But he was a founder of the Salvadoran Communist Party, the Guatemalan Communist Party, and the Honduran Communist Party. And he describes in his book, there's a great memoir that he wrote that's he says the most beautiful organizing experience he ever had was in Ilopango, I think, where they organized a cooperative of women selling fish, because the women would go down to the docks and get these sort of basket loads of fish and then carry them up the hills into the town to sell them. And it was apparently like really rough work. It was very exploited originally. And then the women got together with his help and other organizers, and they formed a worker co-op to bring the fish up from the dock and sell it. And it's very interesting. I was surprised when I read it, because at the time I read it, I hadn't thought of cooperatives as kind of part of the workers' movement or, revolutionary movements or anything. And then he describes this as his most beautiful organizing experience. I thought that's kind of fascinating. Always stuck with me as like, oh, I guess these co-ops have got something to them. There's something relevant about this. So anyway, it's just funny. But I definitely recommend his memoir. It's a great book. There's actually a what do they call those? Like a comic book version? Graphic novel. Yeah, there's a graphic novel version of it. That's very good.
What's the guy's name again?
His name, it's Miguel, and Marmol is his last name. Marmol is marble in Spanish.
Okay.
But Miguel Marmol.
Spelled the same.
Marmol. Marmol with the accent on the first part.
Nice. Yeah, the another of my favorite co-op experiences happened also regularly while visiting the Ganas intentional community.
Oh yeah.
It's I don't think it's not technically a co-op, but they are very co-op-y. I, and part of that co-opiness is joint dinners, and they have
Mm.
people in the community who just spend the day making a 5-course meal for everybody 5 nights a week, and it is
Mm.
the most amazing thing to get done with a day of work and come home and take your shower and then just go and get in line at the in the dining room, and they had everything. If you were a carnivore, they had you covered. If you're a vegan, they got you stuff. They got entrees and everything for you, and big salad bar.
Hmm.
It really is an amazing thing. They do regular, I don't know if they've started this again, but uh, they were doing like regular guest evenings on Friday nights before the pandemic, anyway. And it's certainly, if anybody's ever on Staten Island looking up the Ganas community, they're welcome visitors. Anybody who's interested, and it's definitely worth a stop. They've got the time I was there, I think 7 or 8 buildings that they own. Residential
Jeez.
buildings, a lot of them, with like connected backyards, and then a couple of commercial buildings where they have a secondhand furniture store in 2 of the buildings. They have a secondhand clothing store in one of them, and then they have a bookstore / cafe in the third one.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's the whole package. They're running retail outlets. They've got their housing. They do cooperative shopping and cooking, and kind of keeping everybody stocked up on stuff. So
I've got to
Yeah.
visit. I've just got to check it out.
yeah, Ganas.org. There it is. The website for you. But yeah, that was getting to eat dinner at Ganas on a regular basis when I was staying and working there. The couple of months that I did that was definitely one of my good best co-op moments.
Yeah, something to reproduce, right? That kind of living is what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's, as a Montana boy, it was. It was just, I wish you weren't on Staten Island, because it was so
Right.
great. Like, I so drawn to it, but New York City, it's too dense for me. Like, my psyche was literally rebelling. It was not a place for me personally, but yeah, they got it going on for sure.
Josh,
Well,
you said you have a hard stop.
I do. I have dogs that want to be fed and goats that want to be milked, and go take care of that. But you guys are more than welcome to stay on if you want to keep talking about things. If you have anything.
Now I got to roll too, actually. So this is a good stopping point.
If Chris doesn't want a monologue, then I guess we shall.
No. But what is it? geo.coop/donate.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
If you want to, well, go to geo.coop first of all. Check out our website, all your co-op and solidarity economy news and information, and then go to geo.coop/donate, make a donation. You can also subscribe to our newsletter on the website once weekly. Just get in your inbox what went up on the website that week. So yeah, you can do all that stuff, and we will see you in a month. And I just wanted to point out, I used the Mickey Mouse Steamboat Willie for our thumbnail today, because you got to, right? Everybody, I think, is now required to use Mickey Mouse as much as possible, because
not
he's now
under
public
copyright anymore. That one.
Under copyrighted. So I thought, why not? Let's put him on there. All right.
Very cool.
Well, from Mickey and all of us at GEO, good night.
Hey, check it out. Ade was there.
Hey, yay.
You can get on it next time, Ade.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I gotta
All right,
go
Joe.
milk goats for real. All right,
Bye.
later.
Bye.